Good evening, good night, and welcome to Mindful Live 361. I am your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is presently the 8th of the 3rd, the 8th of March. March is speeding along well and proper. Once you're on the inside, if you're looking at this on no, we are not streaming on Instagram tonight, unfortunately. A bit of technical difficulties, but we'll be back to Instagram next week, don't worry. Once you're streaming this live over there on TikTok, make sure you hit that like button, double tap the screen. If you're looking at this live on YouTube there, do hit the like button there also, and feel free to drop a comment, leave a comment, tell me what you think. The comments really do help with the algorithm and pushing it out there to more people. On YouTube, we have a bit of an upgrade these days. The quality of the YouTube video should be, you should be seeing a little color popping and stuff. 4K quality once the internet is behaving, once Digicel is giving me what I'm paying for, I know this Alexander personally, Dr. Real says, and he is definitely not the man, and he never plays well with others. My deceased sister Phoebe would have been 41 today. Condolences, sir. Condolences. Let's see if we could jump into some of these stories for the evening, though. Bacchanal among the opposition parties, as you know, they're trying to see who is going to be the one, who is the chosen one out there. Well, UNC members prefer NTA for coalition. Yikes. Prefer Gary's NTA for coalition. United National Congress leader Kamala Prasad-Bissessar says she has no time for drama and is focusing on issues affecting citizens and preparing for the general election. Listen, this is really like, the best thing that people are fighting over. And when they ask her opinion on it, she says, I'm not in for all this commerce and bacchanal, I had nothing to do with that. All right. And National Transformation Alliance leader Gary Griffith says he has no intention of being in any catfight or issuing ultimatums such as is being issued to the UNC by other parties. However, as far as some senior UNC members are concerned, a coalition with Griffith's NTA is back on and the preferred arrangement to fight the People's National Movement. This from the two parties after Progressive Empowerment Party leader Philip Alexander's recent statements on the UNC and NTA. After Griffith took issue with Prasad's, well, we know the history there. Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar said that the small parties have to bring something to the table. Don't just come here feeling everything is everything. After that statement, well, Double G doesn't take lightly to being poked and prodded. He fired back. There was a bit of a little kerfuffle, something going on there. Now, interestingly enough, when that occurred, one of the main power brokers from back in the 2010 incarnation of the People's Partnership, Mr. Warner, Mr. Austin, he was saying that he was interested in being a peacemaker between Mr. Gary and the UNC, because they need that unity. It might seem, and I don't know this for sure, but Warner said he was willing to be a go-between for that peacemaking. It could seem like maybe he was successful because the parties seem to be back together now. Now, Mr. Warner in the coming election could be an interesting figure too, because if I remember correctly, his US case has some discrepancy going on now. I think when it went up in the US, when it was appealed in the US, something changed. I can't remember exactly, but he could be back on the landscape in the coming election, and that's a major player. On Wednesday, as Griffith appeared to reconnect with the UNC, Alexander said he'd cancel all media appearances, public statements, and public meetings until UNC leadership decides if Griffith or anyone he's involved with are again part of any accommodation with the UNC. Is it me you want, or is it him you want? You must choose. You cannot have us both. You must choose. Rooney, I'd have to refresh myself on that news. I can't remember exactly how that news went, what happened to the case. Let me see if I could pull that up and see if I could refresh my memory a bit there. I feel I'd have to go looking for that for a while to, you know, really grab that for you. All right, yeah. Never mind that. We're still here reading in the bacchanal as it goes on. Griffith on Wednesday had said there was ongoing dialogue with Prasad Bisesa and the teething issues with UNC were expected, and these were to ensure mutual respect. Prasad Bisesa, who on Monday thanked parties for endorsing her, only said briefly to Guardian Media yesterday the UNC is focused on the issues affecting our citizens and preparing for the general election. It's interesting, Mrs. Prasad Bisesa gave no oxygen to that whole thing. And that's what makes me believe that there may have been indeed some peacemaking made up between the UNC and Mr. Griffith. Because, yeah, I saw that Synacat. Because they were basically having a public spat just last week. Just last week they were having a public spat. This week, somebody comes in thinking they get through, and it seems like the spat is all healed up. Ronnie, a man who I believe worked somewhere in UE, was on a TikTok live with a whole group of people. It looked like it could have been up to 12 people on the live, one of those kind of group lives business, and he was murdered during the live. Yeah, that happened in Trinidad and Tobago. But yeah, back to the analogy of this being like, you know, a kind of relationship scene business. It's like the best thing out there. The young lady that many young men seem to prefer. It looked like she had a little thing going on with this fella. But then you see she posts on social media that I single, yes. Forget about men. You know those posts when a little conflict go on in the interaction there, or you see all these statuses. I single, yes. Men is trouble. You had to see about yourself. It's time to city girls time, city girls summer. Forget about man. I single. Man is dog and da 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 da. All right. So the guy on the outside figure, now is my chance. I could make my move. So he run up in the DMs and he started, you know, make himself known. I wanna get through too. But it looked like he may have taken too long because the ex, like, they make back up in the meantime. Tough. Griffith said there was only one media report that stated there was no longer any unity, but at no time did either the UNC or NTA state that. As I said, there will be slight teething problems and they'll be rectified to ensure no repeat of issues as in 2010-2015, like the UNC's remaining focused. We in NTA remain focused on issues that affect TNT and showing the public we have the solution required to fix TNT. Griffith added, we have no intention of being in any catfight or gutter politics with any other party or issuing ultimatums or threats like what's being issued to UNC and outright attacks on other parties. NTA wants no part of that. Look at Double G. All mature and magnanimous. Isn't that a thing? Well done, Double G. Well done. All, caring. Having that nation building spirit. Well done, Double G. Well done, well done, well done indeed. Yesterday, Alexander said, when we entered into this arrangement and made this declaration of support, not only was Griffith not in the picture, he was attacking the UNC and Mrs. Prasad Bisesa. So when I jump in your DMs, you and the X was X. So how come all you back talking again? What is happening here? Saying that's why he gave his support to Prasad Bisesa to stand up to Griffith. Mr. Alexander is saying he was supporting the UNC. He was supporting Mrs. Prasad Bisesa to give her power to stand up to Mr. Griffith. To stand up to Mr. Griffith. As in, the UNC would have been otherwise incapable of standing up to Mr. Griffith. Like, you really believe that? Or that's the narrative you want to go with? That your intention was, to give the kind of support that would be needed if you want to stand up to somebody like this. So I'm supporting you to allow you to stand up to them. He added, this is Mr. Alexander speaking, it was successful. It panicked him, boiled him down like Baji, sent him begging back. This isn't the first time he's detonated. He did so when he was Kamala's National Security Minister, claiming Griffith was very much responsible for the People's Partnership government's demise. Alexander claimed that when Griffith was police commissioner, he accused the UNC of being an obstruction to proper law enforcement and other accusations. So this is something here that I think is a negative on Mr. Alexander. He is saying that Griffith was the reason for the partnership's demise. No, corruption, mismanagement, and poor governance was the reason for the partnership's demise. And to make it seem like Mr. Griffith was supposed to toe the party line and support the partnership, regardless of how the country was running, doesn't show a positive light for Mr. Alexander. And why does Mr. Alexander sound like he was a UNC supporter from 2010? Why does it sound like he has some kind of acrimony for the falling apart of the partnership? Weren't you an independent party? And this is the problem I say that I regularly find with the independent parties in the country. Why would I go vote for a third party that's going to join the UNC? Why don't I just vote for the UNC? Why launder my vote through a third party to do the same thing? What's the point of that? Mr. Alexander is also claiming here that his announcement of supporting Mrs. Prasad Bisesa is what caused Mr. Griffith to change his mind. That announcement scared Mr. Griffith. He believes that. His announcement of support to the UNC scared Griffith so much, it made him boil down and relax himself. I'll say I doubt that's the reason. Opposition frontliners trash Phillips' comments. Yesterday, however, some in the UNC confirmed NTA leader Gary Griffith was obviously back in the accommodation fold. On the overall situation, a top leadership official who did not want to be identified said, "We're happy so many are tripping over themselves to join the UNC, but the party cannot accept ultimatums. I imagine other groups will also come running to embrace the UNC, and if we all have to work together to remove the PNM legally, that effort has no place for ultimatums." The official added the NTA was UNC's partner from the start in an alliance which successfully fought the local government polls. So Mr. Alexander must understand about joining teams that one doesn't automatically become coach, manager, and everything. Some other senior members also trashed Alexander's comments, saying the UNC was a party of 19 seats, 300,000 members, and it couldn't be given ultimatums by persons whose party had lost all deposits in the last election. Oh, geez. Resigned so many times from its leadership, and that party now has its own internal issues which ain't finished. Trinidad says PEA is a textbook example of a megalomaniac. He will bring Bacchanal and chaos to any agreement. Well, you know, Trinidad, it seems like many of the men in our political landscape suffer with that same problem, if we're being honest. Many of them seem like they suffer with that problem. Mrs. Prasad Visesa, to me, is in an unenviable position. Like, these people really must love power. I could tell you, if I was 70-something years old, already have enough money to retire, and probably for my children and grandchildren to retire too. Already have my nice pink mansion in the Philippines. I was going in my old age to go through all of this bacchanal and trying to wrangle and tangle and balance the egos of Mr. Alexander and Mr. Griffith. You could imagine an alliance where these men are the kind of people that surround you every day. People whose ambition and ego know no bounds. You know that this person is basically using you as a stepping stone, and if they get the opportunity to step over you, they're going to do it in a blink. And these are the people you must work with daily. Jeez. I couldn't. Political scientist warns Kamala to be wary of PEP leader. One political scientist is questioning the legitimacy of Philip Alexander's leadership of the Progressive Empowerment Party, while another is challenging the authority of his former deputy leaders who have distanced themselves from him. Political scientist Dr. Indira Ramprasad said yesterday that while the PAP is a struggling third force, it is now unclear if Alexander is the true leader. The comment came following a media release. We know what happened there. Ramprasad said Alexander's decision to quit and then resume the PEP leadership under questionable circumstances make him a pariah for the UNC. We're not even sure if he is indeed the legitimate leader of his party. So it's a bit of a mess, right? It's quite a bit of a mess. That has to be sorted out. And I said this before. That has to be sorted out before he could think about joining with anyone. The UNC has to be careful about that and the legality of him as political leader. Good night, sexy Dogla. Good night. Additionally, she said questions exist on if all these Borats could live in one hole, as I was pointing out there, as UNC leader Kamala Prasad Visesa will be surrounded by strongmen if she decides to work with Alexander or the NTA leader Gary Griffith. And that's just the reality. Good evening, Linda. Good evening, Lyndon Mack. Would it be possible to work with all of these strong personalities? Would it be possible to get an alliance going and move it in the direction that you want it to go? I tend to lean to no. The fact that there are crabs in a barrel scrambling for a piece of the UNC pie suggests that the political fortunes of the UNC are improving considerably because we're seeing these parties gravitating towards the UNC, probably in the hope of being kingmaker, probably in the hope of an accommodation. I disagree with the political analyst there. Yo, Trini Hotep, yeah, I disagree with the analyst there. I don't think that this is necessarily a sign of the UNC's hope rising, their fortunes rising. I don't think so necessarily, because I think they're sensing weakness in the UNC, and that's the reason they're so strong on the UNC's trail. It's not that they sense strength in the UNC and they want to tag along to strength. They sense weakness. But the UNC is still a major force. They sense weakness. They know that the UNC under Kamala Persad-Bissessar has lost a string of elections and they don't want to lose another one really and truly. And they know that the UNC struggles to win elections on their own. So they have the feeling that they are in a position to make some stronger demands on the UNC because it seems like the UNC needs them. Okay, yes, they need the UNC to get anything at all, but the UNC needs them to get out of opposition. Without an alliance, the UNC seems like they would just be facing inevitable opposition continually. And the UNC, I suppose, doesn't want that. So, okay, yes, these third parties have nothing that they can do on their own, but if you cannot get out of the opposition position on your own, and you need these third parties to make that step, then the third parties actually have more power. They're the ones with a lot of power. I mean, they could stay on their own and do the nothing that they always do. They regularly do nothing. They regularly don't get much. Say they regularly lose their deposit. They could stay continually doing that. But if you want to win, you have to make a change. Lyndon Mac, you got something to say there, bro?
Let me see, President. Good night, my brother, and to everybody on the panel.
Good night.
You know, there are some political analysis, political science, and it's also a numbers game. Yeah?
Yeah.
We have to remember that Kamala Persad-Bissessar will be history of Trinidad and to bring about alliance to win a general election. And whilst there are some smell, I'd say as fair, the UNC is still a major to get there. Now we are having with this analysis that recently came out, we also saw a string of what I am saying as an independent very the monitoring, they are independent candidates and take the responsibility that we call observers. That we go in to directly utilize the mechanisms of science in things. At this point in time, is now saying after 5 years, losing a general election and also an election, that they did not want to have anything to do with United National Congress because they wanted to bring a different election. For a political leader not come after literally losing a by-election and a general election means that there is no in the party. And let's just say for one reason that one leader decides to go in. In numbers, is he able to carry in when there is no internally within the party? And now you have the deputy leaders who are questioning the operations with and the members who are saying they win as a leader. So we've literally done the problem is not whether or not they can go in. The problem is how many carry in order to assist the United National Congress to win this election.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and I do think that you were saying there that the UNC is still powerful to bring out their own members and all of that. But that has never been the UNC's problem. The UNC has always had an immovable, strong base. And I don't think the UNC thinks their base moved. But I don't think that the UNC is going to win. I don't think that the UNC is in a stronger position in 2025 than they were in 2020, than they were in 2015. And if the same UNC goes up against the same PNM in the same country, I don't understand how we expect different results. Like, which voting bloc do you expect in the 5 years between 2020 to 2025, in those 5 intervening years, which voting bloc moved from PNM to UNC? Which group of people moved? Was the UNC able to capture the young people who turned 18 in the intervening time? Do you think the UNC made major inroads into the youth vote in that time? Because
I say to you directly that science and that has not been determined. I will also say as an independent observer that has not been done. We recognize that, in the past 5 years, we had since turning 18. Mm-hmm. So you could imagine the barrier of 18-year-olds being able to say, I can go. Mm-hmm. And the bigger determining factor is the young people past 5 years understand reasons why they should vote as going to.
No, they don't. And to me, that's where I'm putting my analysis. And I want to know: is there anybody out there that actually believes the UNC stands a good chance going alone? I don't think people.
If they are going to target that 5-year market of 18-year-olds, and we can determine that 5 years we had probably 15,000 turning 18, if that will be the determining factor, or if we are looking at the age barrier between 25 and 45, we have to know independently that science has not been done.
No.
We have not seen that science being done on the ground. And what is going to happen is, you see, if it's not that the UNC cannot go in there to win, the problem is, are they doing the work now? Are they doing the necessary science and ground now in order to determine which are the strong areas that they know in order to see these are the places where we lost last by elections, these are the places where we lost numbers, these are where we need to focus on numbers. These things can turn an election around.
Yes.
But I will say also it will be very unwise for them to just look like they are desperate position to take on any other entity into the party where there are also issues in both parties, and we do not know what numbers they are bringing to the table.
I agree. Taking on in desperation is a bad idea. But my statement on the seeming desperation is what I think the third parties see in the UNC, not necessarily how the UNC is behaving. Because as far as I could tell, it's not that the UNC is inviting all of these and begging these per se. These parties are making these moves kind of on their own merit. So I think some of these parties think that they see weakness. I'm not necessarily saying that the UNC is behaving in a weak manner. And I agree that if you're a strategist inside of the UNC, you're supposed to be looking to break down these things and look to target some of these groups. I, however, think that nobody in Trinidad, no political group in Trinidad and Tobago has a strong claim on the youth vote. If I were to just guess, I would guess that those turning 18 in the intervening 5 years, 2020 to 2025, you'll just see an extremely low voter turnout from them. I don't believe that there are many young people between the ages of 18 and 24, not 24 actually, 18 and 22, that are going to be very enthused about voting for 70-year-old people that have been in governance since they were born. These are the only people they know in governance since they were born, and they've been doing the same thing over. You think that some 22-year-old is enthusiastic about putting an X for Kamala Persad-Bissessar? Really? No. The people who are enthusiastic about that are 40, 50-year-old mothers from Southland. Those are Kamala Persad-Bissessar's most enthusiastic base. The mothers from the Southland that see themselves in her and remember her from first woman attorney general and minister of education in the 90s. And yes, and that's why you could never win CAMS on an internal election inside the UNC, because those 40, 50-year-old mothers from the Southland and Central are going to vote in all the internal elections, and they're making sure they're voting for their preferred CAMS. But the young people, they don't care. I don't know any young person that is loving on tanticams. I don't doubt that the 22-year-olds and under, many of them don't even know about tanticams as we call her with the millennial generation. I just don't think they have that appeal.
Outside of that, then you have to look at as well the political issues for the past 5 years that would determine how persons see the state of the country. I also don't think 22 to 25 years really understand the level of what we call that the nation is in. See, these persons will be going out of office in 5 years' time, maybe in 2 or 3 years' time, and the nation has to look at that debt ratio that is upon us. Then, here's one of the most important things. You would recognize that in a 15-year time, there's been an assessment done in the schools as to, in standard 5 or 1, asking children if you were supposed to go to more. Do these statistics still are they still utilized? Because what will happen is the science that they use is based on how parents would have voted in the home, given an indication children will see today. That science as well has not changed. So the question we need to be asking ourselves is, are Trinidadians and Tobagonians in 2020, are we guided by the science and the statistics that deals with the data? Is the unbiased entity that is taking responsibility to do these scientific research in order to ensure that the data is correct and it is unbiased?
But what's the point of the unbiased data, though? What's the importance of the unbiased data?
Unbiased data allows you to understand basically through the numbers, through the issues, an election can be determined based on those issues. For example. But
do you think elections are really determined based on issues? Do you think that is the determination of most elections?
It is part of determination, especially if you're looking at Westminster politics. It is. However, in Trinidad and Tobago, it can also be said, and this must be said, that Trinidad, it can be also said that a number of the issues surrounding it can be race-baited. And it's still a factor that we have not been able to get over today. If you go in certain camps in the PNM, if you go in certain camps in the UNC, the real question is, are they voting based on issues, or are they voting based on race?
And here's the thing, Lyndon Mac. I don't think I agree in Trinidad and Tobago, race has a big part to play. But it's not only race. If you look in the United States, after they invented the disposable shaver, no president since then with a beard or mustache has been elected. all presidents have been married with children. All presidents are of a certain height. Or there haven't been obese presidents. Since colored television, all presidents have been a certain way, the more unattractive ones do. There are many, many factors that people use to select things way differently than the main issues. The main issues, I think, are very, very few people. Like, I think if you were to look at the percentage of our electorate that looks at issues, reads the newspaper, looks at the news, and makes up their mind based on those issues, reading the economy of the country and the management and the ideas that are proposed and the personnel and okay, well, I think this party would be better. I think that's a very, very, very minuscule percentage of the electorate. A significant portion is, well, my mother tell me to vote for so and so, so and so. A significant portion is, well, race, yes. A significant portion is who look good. A significant portion is my friend group. A significant portion is who popular culture says. You look at, we don't have much of those statistics, but the United States, that's why I like to use a lot of their information, because they collect a lot of those statistics. You look at their statistical models and you look at what is the driving factor behind the youth vote and etc. It's popular culture. Whichever party the popular culture decides is the more important party, that's who the youth vote for. That's not issues. They aren't voting based on issues.
I don't think the youth vote is voting based on issues. I don't think, based on what I looked at in the last general elections, we have to also look at those histories as well. I do not think the youth vote in Trinidad and Tobago, most of the youths are voting based on issues, and the problem with that again is education. If you look at the simplest thing as we call the Declaration on Fundamentals of Human Rights enshrined in Trinidad and Tobago, many Trinidad and Tobagoans really understand this thing called human rights to give us a real determination of the issues that we are being faced. Because, I'll give you a typical issue. Water was a promise that was 2020, it's now 2024. And we still have situations today where water is not in even the basic communities. So we've recognized that these things are seriously overlooked. Those issues are overlooked. And the real question will be is, when you're going to the polls to vote, why are you voting? Are you going to vote based on issues that are affecting you or affecting your country? Or are we just going back to the popular idea is, if you don't vote for PNM, you probably might vote for UNC because you may not have a choice.
Akim Byron, you said that that's a wrong analysis. We're missing out something there, and you never did say what is the one thing we're missing there that makes you believe the UNC in its present incarnation stands a better chance than they did before. I don't know what's that one thing we're missing. I don't get it. I know that the UNC believes that they have a wedge issue on crime. And crime is important. Crime is scary. Crime does affect a lot of people in Trinidad and Tobago. I am just not sure what contingent of the country would sway votes based on crime. And understanding how our voting system is based, so what you're aiming to do by and large, the UNC and the PNM, what they're aiming to do, they're really aiming for probably 50 to 100,000 voters located in St. Augustine, Samo Barataria, Bonnet, Dabadi, Grandi, Mayaro, just a few of those constituencies that can actually swing. They're looking for a small contingent. What did he say, Akim Byron? What did he say? Young people vote based on how their parents vote, on a family or by race. So what are you saying, that young people vote based on race, and the race of the UNC, they made more children? The UNC made more children? Is that what you're saying? The UNC has more children? I don't buy that. And as I was saying, understanding how Trinidad politics works, Even if you're saying that the UNC people made more children and their children are going to vote more UNC, what that is going to actually cause is the UNC will just win the safe seats that they always win. They're going to win it more comprehensively. Like winning Penal Debe by a further 10,000 more votes than you got last time doesn't give you any more political power. You have to get people from constituencies that don't typically vote for you to change their mind and start voting for you. I don't see that happened in the last 5 years. Yeah, Lyndon?
So it's an issue, and let me explain why. If you look at the way voting is happening, it is also always happening by seats and numbers. So even if you were supposed to take, let's just say, the Penal Debe seats, and they have an additional 10,000 that probably will vote in that area, that still may not determine whether or not they are actually going to win. Because you may have persons who may coming from the other areas and they may vote. But remember, the way the politics is set up is you can only vote based on one, where your residency is based. That is basically it. And two, your personal choice. So if I am in point 14, and the issue is point 14, we know directly how there has been struggle in that area for years. And if the UNC who says they want to be able to take that seat strong, the question is, are they in the area in change the narrative, the numbers? Remember again, this is by line that says based on constituency number is only where you can. So that means even if you're looking at the science, the PNM could get 20,000 new voters. They can get 50,000 voters. The question is, are they going to get it in the areas that will allow them to change the swing of the population in that area?
Correct. That's the point. Are they getting it in the right area? And that's how our politics functions. It's constituency based. You could get 1 million votes if it's in one constituency. You only have one constituency. Kim Byron says, think about how much people say they are disappointed with PNM governing in the past 10 years. Many people, but that says nothing. That's not how people change. Food prices, gas prices, the Congress racket exposed. Well, food prices, you have to look at that on a relative scale. Relative to the world, Trinidad's food prices have not gone up astronomically. It's kind of going up all over. Gas prices, you're understanding that that's a subsidy-based thing, so it's removed from the subsidy. I don't know if there are many voters who would change vote, because remember, that's what we're aiming at here. We're not aiming to find the UNC voters who always hated the PNM and are going to continue hating the PNM, and they're saying this. No. We're looking for people who would not have voted for the UNC and now they will vote for the UNC. How many people do you think will be like that because of the subsidy removed from gas? I don't know how many people would be like that for the subsidy removed from gas. I don't think many people would do that. For food prices, I don't think many people would do that. And complaining about disappointed governing is not really what changes votes. Property tax, well, that might work, but property tax, the PNM has been talking about that since 2010. So if somebody voted for the PNM in 2015, they voted for them knowing that the PNM agrees with property tax. If that person voted for the PNM in 2020, they voted for them knowing that they agree with property tax. Crime was already up in 2019, and those people still voted back for the PNM. And this is my problem. This is what I'm saying with the UNC in its same incarnation. If you're telling me that, okay, the UNC changed leadership, then all right, there could be a little difference because now there's something different for the people to get an option. But if you're telling me it's the same options, there are no different options. It's the same options. And basically the same situation persists. The only thing I could really see, if I were to give a guess analysis without any data, and I were to predict, I would predict the same outcome we got last time with a lower voter turnout. Because less people are going to be enthused about voting for the same people that they believe continue failing them. So they wouldn't vote. But as for people switching votes, I don't think there would be a significant contingent of those. I just don't. I don't see how. I don't see the reasoning. What going on, Otep?
That's good. Is this politics 101? Is this politics for beginners? I'm confused. People don't understand how, like, this is not even a Trinidad thing necessarily. This is a political thing, kind of like everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but in countries that persist of a representative democracy and it's two-party, that's what political parties do. They look for swing voters, or should I say centrists, people who sit on the fence in the center. That's how it works. Trinidad is no, grasshopper to that kind of thing, right? UNC and the PNM. Because people obviously ask the question why the UNC has a lot of safe seats and doesn't beat the PNM every single time election passes. It's because, PNM generally know how to appeal to the centrists. That's the truth of the matter.
It is.
The PNM has been the party for majority of Trinidad.
PNM has a wider base than the UNC. That's just the reality. PNM has a wider base. They do.
That's the truth. So I don't think people like complaining about governance and complaining about rising food prices. People can complain about the fact that KFC is $51. I still see Prestige Holdings making about $55 billion at the end of the year. That's the truth of the matter. So I don't know what people think. This is trying to change people's votes is a hard thing to do.
Very hard.
And they sit squarely in their political ideologies. That's just the truth of the matter. That's why political parties try to sway the mind of the centrists. That's the truth.
And actually, I was reading a theory that was saying it's not even really swing voters, but you're trying to basically awaken dormant voters, because the actual people who would vote for one party and then vote for another party are an extremely tiny minority of people. The actual swing that will swing. Many people, what they might do is they are PNM voters, but if PNM get them vexed, they wouldn't vote. And that's not really a swing voter. Like Donald Trump, what they say Donald Trump was able to do is he was able to activate a base that didn't really exist. So that's kind of a political strategy. All right, the Republicans have a base, the Democrats have a base. This is US politics we're talking here. If you're appealing for the Republican base, you're going up for the Republicans, but you want exactly the general thing that the Republicans love, their typical base. But bear in mind, it's actually, what's the voter turnout? I think the voter turnout is less than 50% in the United States. So the majority of people don't vote. So there's a majority of people you can possibly appeal to that can come out and be the first-time voters for you. So under Donald Trump in 2016, they saw a lot of first-time voters, people who never voted before. They never had a base before. They found their base there. And maybe... Lyndon.
Let me just correct a few things there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Donald Trump's election, Joe Biden's election, first thing you have to recognize is that students who are in the school system, by the time that they are 15, they already understand what is called their first, second, third, fourth amendment rights. By the time they are 18 years of age, they are already going out there looking to the avenue of voting, and they already have a consensus based on the area that they live in and what the issues that they are going for. Trinidad and Tobago, the mechanism is totally different. You have in households, youths who are actually coming before, and they do have a as to what we say real current affair issues as to why they me just give you a typical example of, say, independent assessment. We have two political parties at this point in time where, after by election, Kamala Prasad said she appealed to the smaller parties to join forces. You had statements coming from the political leader of the Progressive Empowerment Party saying Kamala Prasad was disrespectful. She went out directly to appeal to parties to come in. Now, again, we're dealing with the avenue of, in Trinidad and Tobago, they are not understand science. Some of these persons who are going to the is not that they are going to the based on that science. And we have to know if the science in Trinidad research can allow that says, I am going to vote. There's a situation that I don't want to be paying for the tax, and I don't want to lose my property to my next generation. Based on the way these political parties their campaign, and based on among campaign, can give a real idea through the and the information. However, the situation here we are seeing in the political is that we are definitely sure there is no dominant force that can come to the table. We had Philip Edward Alexander, we had Gary Griffith, a number that had two. Where are all of them?
Well, Abdullah said that he will not be joining the UNC, yeah?
This is what I'm saying. So there is no definite. So the question is, and let's just look at him. Can David Abdul, by his own, be able to change the swing vote narrative in Trinidad?
I don't think so.
No.
No.
Good. So we know that because, again, numbers, this is about, okay? In the by-election, we have coming out with 3,065. Can the PEP win any one or two seats in any constituency if they are supposed to go 2025? No. The answer is no. So again, we are now have to look at that science and have to be guided by that science. As a matter of fact, with the political analysis who said that PEP now have to fix their internal issues because at this critical time, they do not in their based on even if he was in the United National Congress tomorrow, he cannot directly swing any change because it's power from within his own team.
Correct. He has, and that's just the fact of it. But that works out negatively, really and truly, for the UNC because the UNC needs some strong alliances, I think, if they want to win in the upcoming election. They need those strong alliances. They're basically desperate for it. Hey, I still have some more stories other than politics to dive into. Let's rush into some crime. Killers feeling confident from snatching purses to murder. Snatching bags to murder. When Jaheim Diaz was shot and killed on Charlotte Street on Tuesday, he was selling water to provide for his younger siblings. His killing has sent chills down the spines of other vendors who knew him and has left some who shop on and traverse Charlotte Street shaken, emotional, and angry at the brazen and senseless killing. President of the Charlotte Street Vendors Association, Crystal Daniels, said with two murders back to back, the situation is worrying. The politicians and the religious groups are too quiet. There were two consecutive murders back to back. Last Saturday was a murder and this week was another murder in broad daylight, she said. She added, this situation bothers me. It is worrying to see that this young fella who doing something positive, not just for himself, but because of his little brothers and sisters, and it's because of the particular community you come from that they kill you. There are so many black young fellas wasting so much time, and too many of them are involved in senseless killings, all because someone is not from your area, she said. The Express visited Charlotte Street on Wednesday, and it was business as usual at the lower end. However, Upper Charlotte Street, where the killing occurred, was a virtual ghost town. As I have said over and over and over again, It's not that poverty causes crime as much, but crime drives poverty. Literally. Look at Upper Charlotte Street there. A fruit vendor who sold fruits from a van on Charlotte Street, mere meters from where Diaz was killed, said he was not willing to speak to the media. And this, I think, is one of my favorite responses I've heard in reading responses to the media. He was visibly shaken and emotional about the killing. Don't ask me anything. Go and ask the police commissioner or ask Rowley. Don't ask me one single thing about nothing. This killing is too ridiculous. All of you are asking the wrong people these questions, the vendor said. Someone went on there to give a bit of a rundown of the young man's life story and the tragedy that led to him working on the street in the first place. His mother died soon after childbirth and he was out there taking care of his children. I don't know if the man was involved in anything else or not. If some people say that it was just where he lived that caused that. I don't know. Either way, it is a sad thing. And to have this happening right in the middle of our capital, I think is even scarier. The reality where it seems like we're losing hold of our capital is where countries like Haiti have gone, where the gangs now control the capital and they are looking to basically literally execute some government officials and police officials and execute a plan to basically take control of the country. They're doing it in the literal sense. And I mean, I'm not going to be hyperbolic and say that Trinidad is like Haiti because we have some violence in the capital like that. But it is on the road and in the direction to that kind of thing. Maybe we aren't there yet, but we are heading in that direction. The fact that Port of Spain on dangerous lists like Chicago and Sao Paulo always scares me. I never thought it was that bad. Yeah, it is pretty bad. And there are certain areas in Port of Spain you just don't go. You go down certain streets and they're shopping from your pockets and your car like if it's a free for all.
Let me ask the question here, and I will literally jump in, and I want to utilize United States of America and Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's get to the science. If I put out a travel advisory tomorrow by saying, do not go to Trinidad and Tobago, and then I put out a travel advisory saying, do not go to the United States, which one would the persons mostly adhere to based on where the information is coming from? Most persons might say, do not go to Trinidad. But then the situation of crime in the United States and the type of literally shows you that with the United States have, there is still a problem of massacre shootings in schools.
But that's not everywhere. Wait. That's not everywhere. Two, that's not as prevalent as it might seem when you're looking at the statistics, the science. Bear in mind, the US is humongous compared to Trinidad. We are 1.3 million. They're 300 and something million. So, like, there are differences there. And there are some states in the United States that seem to get this safety business down. There are some very, very safe states. And there are states that are dangerous. And you look at what they do and you could see certain commonalities.
So the reason why I would have based on that is because there is this again. You have to look at the science. There's always the narrative that says, and I will say this personally. I've always said this: the way they compare what you data via capita, in my humble opinion, it will always create the idea that smaller countries per capita are more dangerous than larger countries per capita. But when you look at what is that ratio, even if you are saying that it's a crime, and let's just look at this shooting that happened here recently. We also also had before the shooting that recently happened, a young boy that died from a street bullet, and it created no level of uproar in Trinidad. So we have a situation in Trinidad at this point in time where what we call the rights to your protection is not something that we are seriously taking a serious business. Now I'll tell you why I said that. The police commissioner sat before the Joint Selection Committee on the 1st of February 2024, and she said the response time that it takes for the Trinidad and Tobago service to respond to any crime in Trinidad and Tobago is between 11 to 13 minutes. Now she sat before a Joint Selection Committee and literally gave that statistics. Now the real question is, good night my dear, how are we able to really determine whether or not these statistics are a real reflection? Do we have a time checker? Are the mechanisms there literally in place? We could say, for say safety's sake, that it is not there, and this data that she would have presented to the Joint Selection Committee is not a real reflection of what is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. It's now 11:05 right now. Can we say tonight for sure that there are going to be vehicles, 80 vehicles in the streets tonight, showing Trinidad and Tobago's safety, as we know that there is called rights to protection? The answer is no. And the problem we have in the mechanism of this methodology is that as they are saying we have the GPS running, the realistic check is the methodology in the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service has not changed. So we cannot expect that where the presence of policing is strong, criminals are away. That they can drive on the street, and I've literally said this to a personal data I did 3 years ago. A criminal can be sure to drive on the street and still get away with some measure of crime, and they can drive 100 kilometers in any direction, and I'm not sure to see a police vehicle on the street. And the moment we can be able to look at those narratives, it shows you that the Ministry of National Security have the correct methodology in order to create what is called response. We call a first order mental ensure that the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service is doing the job at 365 days.
Yeah, Duckegg, if you Google that, you might find some left-wing people that are attempting to lie to you to make you believe that. But that is factually incorrect. I could list off cities for you that you could. Don't ask Google if undocumented immigrants increase the crime rate. No. Look at a city that had an increase in undocumented immigrants, see the increase in undocumented immigrants, then look at the increase in crime, and it's going to be obvious to you. Listen, rapes skyrocket. This idea that, are you thinking about this yourself? I remember I was saying this some other time this week too, because somebody came with one of these kind of ideas that you have to be educated into believing this kind of nonsense. And any uneducated person, it's obviously nonsense. It's like you have to be educated into believing that you can't tell the difference between a woman and a man. It's only university education could make you that level of silly. Because you're supposed to believe that in a city where people have no information on documents about who they are, they behave better. Where have you learned anything about human nature? That humans behave better when they are anonymous and have no links to the city? You believe that? You really believe that the cities with higher undocumented have less crime and lower rates? Listen. Which are the safest cities in the world? Go look for those and look at how homogeneous they are. Which are the safest countries in the world? Look for those and look at how homogeneous they are. Safety and homogeneity go hand in hand. Multiculturalism makes it difficult to run cities. undocumented are not anonymous. Most have state IDs. If you have a state ID, then by very definition, you are not undocumented. Like what? Words have meanings, man.
But this is becoming remedial.
Words have meanings.
This is the funny thing. This is the funny thing. You don't even have to look everywhere in the world and listen. No disrespect. No, exactly. No disrespect to my African brothers and sisters, because obviously they are running from despotism inside of their Newton. But let's look at the fact of them running to Europe. They are running to Europe, and even the Europeans are saying, listen, they are basically eradicating our culture and our way of life. You see, the truth of the matter is that there's no cohesion when another group comes to your country to try to live on top of you. That's just the truth. That's why France is having an issue with immigrants, undocumented, of course. England is having an issue with immigrants. Spain, many of these countries. So the crime is out of control in certain places in France where they can't even get the undocumented people under control. So I'm confused as to where people think that all of a sudden, no crime rate. All of a sudden, these peaceful little people come within your country to be peaceful. And listen, I'm not saying that illegal immigrants are just inherently criminals, but let's be real.
But here's the funny thing, Trini Hotep. They are. To say that illegal immigrants reduce crime rate is ridiculous on the face of it, because they enter your territory by committing a crime. The person is a criminal on the first day they enter your territory. They're a criminal. So you enter my land by breaking the law, and somehow a university is supposed to convince me that you enter by breaking the law, but once you get in, you would follow all the rest of laws perfectly. Like, which professor convinced you of that? Think about this for a moment and understand this is how we end up to a place where we have Supreme Court justices in the US saying that they can't tell what a woman is. This kind of foolishness where we could get ourselves educated out of what is obvious.
No, you get to the foolishness. You get to the foolishness of actual literal politicians ordering people to house random strangers in their abodes. That's the craziness that you get. Like, imagine somebody telling you to house Venezuelans in your house in Trinidad and Tobago. You would be appalled by Bobby Bean here telling you to house illegal immigrants in your house. That's how crazy. So, what makes you...
Here's the funny thing with this that Duckegg is quoting. He is trying to quote statistics, documented statistics about undocumented people. You're understanding this? He's trying to quote documented statistics on undocumented people. Listen, and it's so ridiculous. He was talking about the IDs. As far as I know, if you are an illegal immigrant, you cannot get an ID. If you go to sign up to get an ID, unless you are in what they call those protection states, the foolish people. If you are an illegal immigrant, you are not eligible for an ID. If you go for your ID, they are supposed to take you and apprehend you and deport you. You are illegally there. If you are a legal migrant, that's another thing. And if you are a refugee, you are appealing for refugee status. That's another thing. Sanctuary states. And look at what is happening to the sanctuary states now. Watch the sanctuary. Look at the crime rate of the sanctuary cities. New York is begging for money because money is running out.
I think Georgia started to make laws to get immigrants.
Chicago too. New York made laws to ban the bus, Texas say, oh, are they like undocumented and illegal immigrants so much? Well, all of ours, we will send to you. They start to bus them over to New York. New York passing laws. Well, actually, we welcome and love all migrants here, but nonetheless, we're going to have to pass a law that no buses could enter the city. Texas say, okay, well, we won't send the buses into New York. We'll send them in New Jersey, drop them off in New Jersey, and they'll walk over into New York anyway.
But Georgia.
Yes, I believe so.
It's
Because it has become ridiculous, right? There's too many illegal immigrants in these states to the point that they can't be housed, and obviously we can't have millions of people on the road. That's just ridiculous. And then obviously in between the only safe immigrants who are running away from their despot countries, obviously there's some criminal. And we all know that criminals don't make up the majority of your population. It doesn't matter if criminals don't. The fact that 3% of your country could be criminals, they cause your country to become a crime hotspot. That says the truth of the matter. Like, do we believe that the people of what, East Porter, Spain, is the majority killing people?
No.
Let's be real. It's like 1%. It's like less than 1%. But they could hot up the place so much in a matter span of a few. That's just how it works. So I'm confused as to where people think that we are saying that the majority of undocumented immigrants are just creating a ridiculous crime situation. That's crazy, man.
that's
The territory.
It does, and like it's kind. That's why I say you have to at some point in time think about this logically. If you're a criminal, would you rather be undocumented or documented in a city? Like, think about that. As a criminal, which position do you think you'd rather be? If you're a criminal, which way would you more likely be a criminal? If you're desperate and illegal in a city, or if you have family and citizenship in a city? Like, these things are pretty obvious. And yet, for some reason, we allow academic papers that when you read through how they get their statistics, it's pretty obvious that they ratch some of it. You read through this and you allow that to convince you of something. Like you have to think about these things a bit better than that. What's my definition of undocumented? Well, that's a good question, and a very ticklish question at that, because undocumented doesn't necessarily mean illegal. You could be undocumented and a refugee. But the thing is, I'm saying undocumented and I'm using it as illegal in this case, for the most part. Because right now in the United States, and it's funny that we're just discussing their border issues, but Doc Egg brought up some of that. Right now, they have an issue where people are abusing their refugee status. We have a Trinidad local artist currently in the United States appealing for refugee status. So people are abusing their refugee status. And that's why the undocumented are very often balled up in the illegal. According to the law, is anyone who enters the US legally and overstays their visa. According to the law, meaning they have a record of them, including fingerprints, so they are not anonymous. That's entering legally. Are you saying that if someone... Here's the technicality also in this. Technically, entering the border illegally is entering illegally. But if you come at the border, enter illegally, and then say you are appealing for refugee status, then you are no longer entering illegally. Exactly, they apply for asylum, but that's abusing the asylum status, the asylum process. So, yes, it's legal, but it's if they are processed for 9 years, if they have a court date 9 years in the future, and they are released into the country, one, do you think they are going to come back for the court date? And do you think that they actually have a trace of all of these people? Because I could tell you that they say they do not have a trace of all of these people, because they do not have documents from their origin country. So how could you have a trace on all of these people if they have no documents showing who they are?
So what normally is supposed to happen in the case of asylum status is that when you let's just say for some reason I leave my country and I have no documents based on the United Nations human rights refugee status, you are supposed to then go register, and then they give you that card that indicates that you're documented citizen, and from by the people, then part of that paper should also indicate where you're staying, etc., etc. Basically, it normally works under the status of. I do not know if this, and I will find out. Then we are directly connected to agencies. Basically, more or less, that is how it works when you are an undocumented citizen. And there's so much technicalities that now people are saying well, you are undocumented because you have a refugee status. The question is, do we really widely understand the difference? Because there are many Trinidadians who went stayed in the United States. Many of them are there up there for years and they have no documents.
But Dr. No. The bill sought to instantiate what is happening right now as the law. The bill sought, I think, to allow 8,500 per day or something like that as law, and they didn't want that. It's not that politics didn't allow it to pass. They didn't want 8,500 people claiming asylum all the time that they know are not asylees. And that's why, for example, in the previous administration, they had the Remain in Mexico law, where basically if you are saying you are fleeing a dangerous country and you pass through a safe country on your way to the United States, then you have to stay in that safe country. And that makes sense, because if you do not want to stay in that safe country and you want to go to the United States, then it's not that you're a refugee, you're an economic migrant because you want what is the best in the United States. And in that case, the United States cannot continue working on a basis like that. So and I believe it wasn't completely shut down after the 5,000. After the 5,000 had some kind of something with it too. I didn't pay perfect attention because I'm not an American citizen, but I pay some attention to it. Even then, they were seeking to add more judges. Yes, and add more judges to allow the people in, because one side believes in allowing in a lot more migrants, and one side is saying we do not want these people here. That's pretty simple. And one side is attempting to allow more migrants in the light of asylum and allow them through as asylees, while one is saying we don't want them here. Do the Remain in Mexico program. If it is that you really are suffering in your country, you cannot leave from Uganda and pass through all of South America and enter the US at their southern border. That doesn't make sense. So what they want is much less, and restricting anybody who could have passed somewhere else, who's obviously abusing the process. And that's very understandable to me. It's very understandable to me. As a person, I am not trying to get into their country, and I understand that in the Trinidad context also. Like, we have this UN group talking about asylum and asylum and asylum for Venezuelans. How many Venezuelans can Trinidad take? And it will not make any sense to pay 10K to get in the US to be deported after 6 months. People will do it because they are criminals, and it causes difficulties in the country, as many people are seeing. There is a migrant crisis right now in the United States because of this nonsense. And it is because it was advertised as such. If you advertise your country as being open for anyone who is of a lower economic status to come to it, then many people are going to come to it. The irony is, even Bernie Sanders, in the original sense, was against this. It's just that that wing of U.S. politics have gone off the deep end. They promised in their last election to give free healthcare to all migrants. Mad people, insane people.
Let's be real. It's for more political voting. Like, let's be real. It's for more voter. At the end of the day, having fresh immigrants in your country means fresh voters, and anything for your base. To be honest, let's be real. And you see, it really helps the cause of liberals to have as many immigrants as it does. You know, that's just the truth of the matter, right? And if you widen your base to that degree, you get a bigger government. And we all know how liberals love big governments. So, yeah, undocumented. You could come undocumented, asylum, once you vote in for obvious. I see the problem is that.
But they are counted. Even if they cannot vote, they are counted in the census. Remember, a certain U.S. president wanted citizenship to be part of the count for the census, and a certain other group did not want that at all, because numbers give you districts. So even if they are undocumented, illegal, whatever, they are counted. And you can get more. California has something they theorize like 7 more districts or something like that, just based on illegal immigrants. So yeah, even if they couldn't vote, there's still a benefit to it. And I mean, I understand. To me, that seems perfectly reasonable to me. So if people in their own country would like to not allow other people to just barge in, that seems like a reasonable thing. The other ironic part is the US has a terrible worker shortage. Trinidadians say the same thing, but what you realize happening in the US when things like that happen is wages get dragged down all around. So it's not just about the worker shortage. Oftentimes the worker shortage is, in a sense, crafted that way. They create a lower level of worker that could only be filled by those playing that role. So in Trinidad and Tobago, we could say there's a worker shortage for farm workers, but there are people in Trinidad that could play that role. We just wouldn't pay them the wage they would want to be paid. So you bring in illegal immigrants and drag down the wage and then say there's a worker shortage. No.
Exactly. And to Ariel's point, yeah, a cheap labor force cheapens your economy. That's just the truth. You would think it's driving down the cost of living to some degree, maybe, but a cheap labor force, like having a bunch of immigrants in your country that is willing to work for less than a penny a day, is going to decimate your economy one way or the other. That's just the truth. That's why the wealth gap in America is astronomically getting larger and the middle class is being eradicated. Like, Americans literally say there is no middle class. The middle class is not even there anymore.
But if they are undocumented and paid off the books, and also, okay, if they are undocumented and paid off the books, then minimum wage won't matter. Listen, I run contracting in Trinidad here. I know that, okay, some laws might be stricter in some places, but we know that they pay workers off the books. We know that. Farm worker programs, and I'm not talking farm worker programs. We were talking about undocumented workers, not workers who sign up for a program to go and pick apples. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking undocumented. Not undocumented. Let's use the word illegal. That's what we're talking about. And they do pay some of them off the books. That's one. And two, minimum wage does drive down the price too. Minimum wage isn't what you would have paid a local worker. So, okay, you could pay some Trinidadian who comes to the US to pick apples. You could pay him at how much ever their minimum wage in that state is, the $10 an hour, or 15 or 25 if you're lucky. But that's not in any state. You could get your $15 an hour and you feel very happy as a trainee making $15 an hour. But if they had to pay a native United States citizen to do the same job, the person would not have taken the minimum wage. So it did drive down the wage. It just had a cap level at minimum. And that's why many of these large corporations love to get in with the government and let the government decide a minimum wage, you know. Because we are honest out here. We pay our people minimum wage. We drag these workers from lower third world countries and we pay them our minimum wage. Because they understand that if they had to hire employees from the native country, it would have been a different wage.
Exactly. And let's be real. America gets to do such things because their dollar value is so big. It's humongous. It spans the world. The US dollar is just that powerful. So an illegal immigrant who's coming from his country with nothing would gladly work for $7.50 US when he knew that money does a lot in his country as well. It goes further. So of course, and listen, the Canadian cost of living crisis is because the Canadian government shot itself in its own leg and continues to do so momentously every time Justin Trudeau speaks a word. Right? Just like how he wants Walmart to drop prices or else he will ban them or tax them ridiculous prices. So when Walmart and the rest of the companies leave Canada and now everybody who works there is out of a job, what will happen to great old Canada's cost of living and unemployment? That's crazy. So no, I don't believe that a cheap labor force makes your country better and drive the cost of living down. That's ridiculous. That's crazy. I've never seen it.
And I've been saying this about even the Venezuelan migration in Trinidad and Tobago. It creates an underclass, and that is going to create problems in your society. Especially when you invite people, when people enter in massive groups in such a way that there cannot be that kind of integration. So I have seen little Venezuelan immigrant villages in the middle of what used to be cane fields in Trinidad and Tobago. A couple huts and people living. Like, that's not something you want. These workers who will come here and they will take any pay that anybody offers them, they're taking it. And they aren't going to complain because they don't want to be kicked out. They just want the job. Even if they are legal migrants, even if they got their status regularized, they will take the lower money because they just want the job. Okay, you want to work me for 12 hours a day and pay me like I'm only working for 8 hours a day. I'll take that in a boss. There's no scene in a boss. No problemo, no problemo. Me work whole day. They will tell you that. And what that does, when you're creating and you're driving wages down. So now I'm not going to hire a local man who is going to do the job for $450 and he is going to come at 7 and leave at 4. I'm not going to hire him when I could get a Venezuelan who will come at 6 and leave at 8 and I could pay him $200. Why would I do that if all I'm concerned about as the boss here is money? So one, I'm driving wages down. Two, it's creating an underclass. These Venezuelans and their families, now they exist kind of in a whole other society placed under the regular Trinis. Because you could never afford a home. You could never really afford vehicles and stuff. You're always just kind of struggling there at the underclass level. What do you think is going to happen to the next generation? There are some articles talking about the Somalian refugees in Sweden. And the problems didn't start with the first generation. The problem started with the second generations. The children who were born there and they weren't Somalian because they weren't born in Somalia. And the Swedes didn't treat them as Swedish because they were born from the Somalians in the Somalian ghettos. So they have no identity. And they have no loyalty to the country. And things started to go south. Look here, back in the day, you could have gotten a Mexican to do some odd jobs day out here. Yeah, so I think it's a very problematic thing. You don't want that. You don't want an underclass. You don't want to drive down wages in your country. Dr. X says, I agree, but keep in mind the natives will complain about prices if businesses don't maintain prices. That's true. But to me, the solution to that is to create a system that displays the honest prices. So people have gotten accustomed to Chinese prices. They have gotten accustomed to companies moving their business all the way across the world to manufacture in a child warehouse, because they get accustomed to those prices. While what it should be is we understand what the real price of something is. So let me know if an iPhone really costs $50,000, then we know that it's only supposed to be people in a certain level that are supposed to be buying this thing. Don't fool us to make us think that the price of this thing is really lower than it is. But the only reason that is because we are oppressing some people somewhere. That's not good economics. And then saying, well, yeah, that's why we have to keep the illegal immigrants coming in. No, that's not why. And here's the thing. If you're inviting all the best people from all the bad countries in the world to come to your country, what are you doing to all the bad countries? Not making them worse? And you consider yourself, a real loving, caring person. You care about all the minority races and all of the other countries and third world countries in the world, and the US is the evil capitalist problem. Okay, you care about these countries so much that you would invite all of their best entrepreneurial minds to leave their country and enter yours? That doesn't even make sense. Ariel says they say if the iPhone is made in the USA, it would cost $9,000. Well, it costs $9,000 in Trinidad. But everything you just said is world economics in a nutshell. True. Doc Egg says that's the problem. They don't want to face reality. Many people don't want to face reality. But reality is still reality, regardless of whether you want to face it or not. It is still reality.
I find what Trini girl said to be interesting, but I mean that's kind of common among many other groups though. Like Pakistanis come to America and they shoot up the ladder in terms of per capita earnings. Specifically Indians from India do the same thing too. I think Vietnamese do the same thing too.
I think Indians are the top to top.
Yeah, I think they are the top. I think they make like 106,000.
Those Indians out in the US, they be doing it.
Listen,
They be doing it.
That's generally true of immigrant groups in general who leave the country that excel at what they excel at. But I think to Nathan's point, it's true in your country when it comes to cheap labor force. That's just the truth of the matter. Ain't gonna get around that pussy.
And you see, it's according to the kind of group you're inviting in. So okay, there are some groups who are going to come in, and because of the culture they come from, they're going to operate differently. They're going to come like the Chinese immigrants in Trinidad and Tobago. They come in and 10 of them rent from one apartment, and they're all working in their one little grocery there. And you're like, well, how are they making money? But they are, and they're willing to eat little and live long, proverbially. And eventually, by the next generation, you see, oh, that's what they were doing. You're seeing the effect of it, according to the culture. Now, that creates some difficult discussions, because then you get to the issue of some people may say, well, then we should only allow immigration from certain cultures, and that gets to a sketchy area that you might not want to get into. But that's just a reality. There are some other cultures that don't have that kind of reality, and especially how people immigrate too. If you have people just flooding over the southern border, that's not really people that are looking. Many of them might not be people that would be aiming to get that familial base to grow their generational wealth, as it were. They may be looking to fill in the lower level labor jobs that we were talking about earlier, and that's the underclass. There are two things I can't stand: people who insult other people's culture and the French. Ha! Ha! Funny stuff. Double-edged sword, they can't want both. True. All right, people, it's 11:37. I'm looking to dive out there. Trini Otep, give me your closing there, bro. What's up?
Listen, man. Be mindful, not mindless. I've heard a lot of serious things today is really not. I can't. Not me teaching politics for beginners. You know, this is insane to me. I don't know why I'm showing that. You know what's funny is that when I was on the live before I had time to come up on stage, me and my friend was literally talking about the fact that Trini people are very entitled, and I say we are entitled because we live in a certain environment and a certain culture, and when Syrians come around, they seem to make a flourishing abundance of money, and the hunger is there for people that just don't live in your country, and that's the truth. That's the truth. People who reside native to the country are more hungry than the people inside the country, but the complaining have to stop from the standpoint of you sign up on the blog talking about the ghetto youth can't be free.
Yeah.
While there's opportunities for you to come out of the ghettos, right?
Correct.
Because, you know, the people from Syria didn't come from wealth. You know what I'm saying?
Bro.
Right? No. So to me, it's like also that connects that too is the fact that the government comes to pat people's back, and the government needs to stop pat backs like babies. Stop pat backs. You know, anybody that people bruise their knee and suffer the consequences of talking on the block about the ghetto youth. Stop patting their back.
Correct. Bro, you know, and you know, anybody could do that, you know. You could decide from this point on you're going to live with you and your family and your circle with that kind of intensity and intention where you're aiming to build something. And if you do it, trust me, many people have done it. There are others who have done it. It's not just Indian families or Jewish families. There are black families that are very wealthy. There are wealthy black families in the world, you know, many of them. Wealthy families of all kind of different cultures and races. It's about you deciding to do that. You could do that. Funny point RL made there about running down 5. That's probably the problem, RL. That's the problem right there. The 5 and 6. That's the problem right there. And by Trini Hotep, I think I need a record of your bro. That's crazy. Because the amount of times I feel like I just need to play that. Bro, that's crazy. I don't know if you listen Rooney speech. Go and listen. I think it's the lady before Rooney. Bro, crazy. Anyway, people, this has been the Mindful Live. I am Nathan Springer, and I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live. We have these on weeknights, every weeknight starting around that 9:30 p.m. time. So I'll see you guys again, not tomorrow, but Monday night for the next Mindful Live. Until then, people, stay well. Peace out. Hope you have a safe weekend. I'm gone. Bye.